Now, when doing hiring in the private equity industry, it's renowned that you'll use scorecards. Scorecards are not what we kind of see them as in tick boxes. There's an element of that, but you're not rating people from 1 to 5. Basically, you're building out the criteria of what you need for your particular position and what's the particular role required to. Now, most private equity firms focus, when looking at the portfolio particularly, on what does the business need right now? We need to increase sales, but then what does the business need at exit? They miss out the big chunk in the middle, which is the majority part. We need to increase sales. We need a commercial chief exec. We need to increase our operations efficiencies. We need an operation-based chief exec, etc., etc. Now, typically a chief exec, you may have a commercial, you may have a preference, but they don't think of the middle part, which is what's the most important part and how to drive that. So here's some of the scorecard criteria that a lot of private equity firms will have added in there, and also some additions of what I think they should have in that process. So some of this usually pretty clear is private equity backed experience. Now there can be a little bit of flexibility, and I know you're listening, you're not in private equity and you're banging your head against a brick wall trying to get in, but in the most part, I recommend to private equity firms that they need the private equity backed experience, because it brings and reduces a level of risk that people are coming in and they won't like it, or they can't work at the private equity pace. Because growing a business in an SME, in a blue chip or a listed business or whatever, non-private equity backed, you can take a business from X to Y over 20 years. And private equity firms are looking to do that in 5 years, and they're looking to possibly do 3 times more than what a typical privately owned or publicly listed business would look to do. The next part you're looking is product experience and industry experience. Those again reduce your element of risk. Beyond that becomes the nuances. Things like building out an exceptional senior team. If you've got a team that you know you need to bring new people into, you need an exec that has that track record. Now, when you're looking at the method of growth, if you're looking at M&A, you need somebody who has merger and acquisitions experience. You need somebody who's led on that process. You need somebody who's been heavily involved in it. And then you need somebody who's competent at integrating. What a lot of private equity firms ask is, how many add-on acquisitions did you do? Well, we did 10. And how many of them did you integrate well? That question doesn't typically get asked. The hard part for a lot of private equity firms is the integration part. Private equity firms are built on building and growing and acquiring organizations. Now, they're good at the acquisition process, they're good at the due diligence process, but they're not as good as the integration, because that's where the exec team needs to do it. Now, if you're assessing an individual for add-on acquisitions, then you need to look at how they integrated those businesses and the success of that. What did they learn from that? What did they do well from that? And building lots of questions around it. Of course, if your plan is not to do a buy and build strategy, then you need to look at somebody with proven organic growth experience. How did they do that? What did they do for that? But making sure you drill into the detail. Just looking at a revenue and EBITDA growth doesn't change the picture, especially if the market grew on the basis that they took over post-COVID and the market exploded because they were at 30 million as a retail organization, and then post that they went to 50. Well, that's great, but was that the market, or was that their intervention? There's all sorts of other areas like exit experience, again, not considered as much, customer experience and customer knowledge, ERP system implementation, stress turnaround type experience, bank experience, whether it be leverage and dealing with those type of environments, blowing the bank covenant if that's been a danger, particular operations processes, if there's new greenfield sites coming on or expanding into new areas, have they set up a new retail outlet before? Have they set up a new manufacturing facility before? Have they driven supply chain from China with all the issues that are happening on there and moved it to Latin America? You've got to look at all the scorecard criteria of what you foresee at the start, the immediate right now, what you see in the middle, but then also what you see at the end of taking that business to exit and their effective presentation process. So whoever you're working with, whatever process you're going to look at for a chief exec, CFO, COO in your portfolio, build those scorecards out and consider what you need from start, middle and end to build a full picture so you make less mistakes when hiring executives into your portfolio companies.